Nuh alayhi salam. Imagine waking up one morning and seeing rain that never stops. Then, before you can even understand what's happening, water begins bursting from the ground beneath your feet. The streets disappear. Homes vanish beneath the waves. People run toward the mountains, believing they will save them. But this wasn't just a flood. It was Allah's judgment upon a nation that had ignored his messenger for almost 1,000 years. Nuh alayhi salam was the first messenger Allah sent after people abandoned Tawheed and began worshipping idols. The Quran tells us he remained among his people for 950 years, calling them back to Allah alone. Just imagine that. Children grew into old men. Entire generations came and went, yet Nuh alayhi salam never stopped inviting them to the truth. He called them during the day and in the quiet of the night. He spoke privately to some and publicly to others. He even reminded them that seeking Allah's forgiveness brings rain, wealth, children, and blessings. But their hearts had become harder with every passing year. Instead of listening, they covered themselves with their clothes, pushed their fingers into their ears, and proudly turned away. Then Allah gave Nuh alayhi salam a command that sounded impossible. Build an ark, not beside a river, not beside the sea, right in the middle of dry land. Every day his people walked past him laughing. Has Nuh alayhi salam become a carpenter? They mocked. Where is the water for this ship? But Nuh alayhi salam didn't build because the weather made sense. He built because Allah's command was enough. Then the sky changed. Rain poured from above with a force the world had never witnessed. At the same time, springs burst from the earth below until water surrounded everything. Houses disappeared. Roads vanished. The very places people trusted for safety were swallowed by the flood. Nuh alayhi salam boarded the ark with the believers and the pairs of animals Allah had commanded him to carry. But one place remained empty, his own son. As the waves continued to rise, Nuh alayhi salam called out with the heart of a father, "My son, come aboard with us, and do not be with the disbelievers." His son looked toward the mountains and replied confidently, "I will climb a mountain. It will protect me from the water." Nuh alayhi salam answered with one of the most heartbreaking verses in the Quran. "There is no protector today from the decree of Allah except for those upon whom he has mercy." Before another word could be spoken, a mighty wave rose between them, and his son was gone. On that day, family could not save you, wealth could not save you, mountains could not save you, only faith could. When Allah's decree had been fulfilled, he commanded the earth to swallow its water and the sky to stop raining. The ark came to rest upon Mount Judy, and the very ship people had laughed at for years became the only place of safety on earth. The first great miracle had ended, but the next nation would make a different mistake. They didn't trust mountains to save them. They carved their homes inside them. Saleh alayhi salam. Imagine carving your home into the side of a mountain, not a small shelter, an entire house cut from solid rock. The people of Thamud were among the greatest builders of their time. Their homes stood inside massive mountains, making them believe nothing could ever destroy them. Strength became their identity, and pride slowly replaced gratitude. Then Allah sent them Saleh alayhi salam, a man from their own people. They knew his honesty. They trusted his character. Yet when he called them to worship Allah alone, they refused to listen. Instead, they made him a challenge. "If you are truly a messenger, show us a miracle." Allah answered their request. Before their very eyes, Allah brought forth the she-camel, a miracle unlike anything they had ever seen. The Quran calls her the she-camel of Allah, a clear sign for the people of Thamud. Classical scholars mention that they had asked for an extraordinary miracle, and by Allah's permission, the she-camel appeared in a way that left them with no excuse to deny it. But the miracle didn't end there. She wasn't simply an animal wandering through the valley. She became a living test. By Allah's command, the well belonged entirely to her on one day and to the people on the next. On her day, she drank from the well, and Allah blessed her with so much milk that it was enough for the people to benefit from. Every single day, her presence reminded them that the land, the water, and every blessing they enjoyed belonged to Allah alone, not to them. The miracle they had demanded was now standing before their eyes. Yet instead of increasing them in faith, it slowly filled their hearts with anger and pride. The leaders gathered together and convinced the most wicked among them to kill the very sign they had demanded. With one strike, they slaughtered the she-camel, then stood before Saleh alayhi salam without a trace of regret. "If you're telling the truth," they said, "bring us the punishment you promised." Saleh alayhi salam looked at his people and gave them one final warning. "You have 3 days left." Imagine living for 3 days knowing Allah's punishment had been promised. The mountains were still standing. Their homes looked as strong as ever. Everything seemed normal until it wasn't. On the 4th day, a mighty blast shook the valley, followed by a violent earthquake. The same mountains they believed would protect them became silent tombs. The people who carved homes into stone were found lifeless inside them. Centuries later, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, passed through the ruins of Thamud, he told his companions not to enter those homes with admiration, but with tears, remembering the people who saw a miracle with their own eyes and still rejected it. Thamud believed mountains could protect them. The next nation placed placed their trust in something even weaker, gods they carved with their own hands. Ibrahim alayhi salam. Imagine growing up in a town where everyone worshipped statues. Your parents worshipped them. Your neighbors worshipped them. Even the king defended them. Now imagine being the only person brave enough to ask, how can something you carved with your own hands become your god? That was Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah sent him to a nation surrounded by idols made of stone and wood. People bowed before them, offered sacrifices to them, and believed they controlled their lives. But when Ibrahim alayhi salam asked them for proof, they had only one answer. We found our forefathers worshipping. Tradition had replaced truth. Ibrahim alayhi salam refused to accept blind imitation. One day, while his people had left for their festival, he entered the temple alone. One by one, he smashed every idol until only the largest remained. Then he placed the axe beside it and quietly walked away. When the people returned, they were horrified. "Who has done this to our gods?" they cried. Ibrahim alayhi salam calmly replied, "Ask the biggest one, if it can speak." For a brief moment, silence filled the crowd. Deep inside, they already knew the answer. Their gods couldn't speak. They couldn't defend themselves. They couldn't even lift the axe lying beside them. That single question shattered their argument before he ever shattered their idols. But instead of accepting the truth, their pride turned into anger. "Burn him," they shouted. "Support your gods." They gathered wood from every corner until a fire unlike anything the town had ever seen rose into the sky. The flames became so intense that they couldn't even throw Ibrahim alayhi salam into it by hand. According to well-known historical reports, they placed him into a large catapult and launched him into the fire. Everyone thought they were about to witness the end of Ibrahim alayhi salam, but Allah had already decided otherwise. With a single command, everything changed. "O fire, be coolness and safety upon Ibrahim alayhi salam." The flames continued to burn. The fire remained exactly where it was, but its nature changed by the command of its creator. What was created to destroy Ibrahim alayhi salam became the very thing that protected him. He walked out without a single burn, proving that even fire cannot burn unless Allah allows it. The people wanted to prove the strength of their false gods. Instead, Allah showed them that every force in creation, even fire itself, obeys only him. The next prophet would witness a different miracle, not fire obeying Allah, but an ordinary wooden staff changing the course of history. Part 4, Dawud alayhi salam. The king who made mountains praise Allah. Imagine standing on a battlefield where an entire army is too afraid to move. On one side stood Jalut, a giant warrior whose name alone filled people with fear. On the other stood a young shepherd carrying nothing more than a simple sling. Nobody expected that young man to change history, but Allah had chosen him. That young shepherd was Dawud alayhi salam. With a single stone and the permission of Allah, Dawud alayhi salam defeated Jalut. The victory that thousands of soldiers thought was impossible came through the hands of one young believer. Soon after, Allah blessed him with prophethood, wisdom, and a kingdom unlike any before him. Yet the greatest miracles of Dawud alayhi salam were not found on the battlefield. They happened whenever he remembered Allah. The Quran tells us that when Dawud alayhi salam raised his voice in praising his Lord, the mountains joined him in glorifying Allah. Imagine standing in a quiet valley as an entire mountain range echoes with tasbih, not as an echo, but as an act of worship. Even the birds gathered around him, praising Allah alongside their prophet. The Quran reminds us that everything in creation glorifies Allah, even though we cannot understand their praise. But with Dawud alayhi salam, Allah allowed people to witness a glimpse of that hidden world. Then came another miracle. Iron, the very symbol of strength and war, became soft in his hands. Without great furnaces or heavy tools, Allah allowed Dawud alayhi salam to shape iron as easily as a craftsman shapes clay. From it, he made strong armor that protected believers in battle. Yet despite this extraordinary gift, Allah still commanded him to work carefully and perfectly, teaching us that even miracles are never an excuse for carelessness. But perhaps Dawud's alayhi salam greatest miracle wasn't his voice, or the mountains, or even the softened iron. It was his heart. He ruled a kingdom, yet remained humble before Allah. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, later described the fasting of Dawud alayhi salam as the most beloved fasting to Allah, fasting every other day, and praised his worship and devotion. A shepherd became a king became a prophet, and through every blessing Allah gave him, he never forgot the one who gave it. The next prophet would inherit not only Dawud's alayhi salam kingdom, but miracles greater than the world had ever imagined. Part 5. Musa alayhi salam, the prophet who broke an empire. Imagine being born with a death sentence before you could even open your eyes. That was the world Musa alayhi salam entered. Pharaoh ruled Egypt with absolute power, yet he lived in fear of a prophecy that a boy from Bani Israel would one day destroy his kingdom. So he gave an order that shook an entire nation. Every newborn Israelite boy was to be killed. Then Musa alayhi salam was born. His mother loved him like every mother loves her child, but Allah inspired her to do something no parent could ever imagine. She placed her baby inside a small basket and set him upon the river, trusting Allah with the one thing she treasured most. That basket didn't drift randomly through the water. Allah guided it straight to Pharaoh's own palace. The child Pharaoh wanted dead was raised under Pharaoh's own roof. The tyrant spent years protecting the very person Allah had chosen to end his empire. From the very beginning, Allah showed that no plan is stronger than his plan. Years later, after Musa alayhi salam left Egypt, Allah called him at Mount Tur. There, the ordinary shepherd's staff he had carried for years became something extraordinary. When Allah commanded him to throw it down, it transformed into a huge living serpent. Musa alayhi salam stepped back in fear, as any human would, but Allah reassured him, commanding him to pick it up, and it became an ordinary staff once again. Then Allah gave him another miracle. Musa alayhi salam placed his hand inside his garment, and when he brought it out, it shone with a brilliant white light without disease or injury, a clear sign from his Lord. Armed with nothing except revelation, Musa alayhi salam returned to the palace where he had once grown up. Standing before the most powerful ruler on earth, he delivered a message no king expected to hear. Worship Allah and let the children of Israel go. Pharaoh didn't answer with evidence. He answered with pride. He reminded Musa alayhi salam that he had been raised inside his palace, as though years of kindness could erase the truth. Then, after witnessing miracles no human could perform, Pharaoh chose the only explanation that protected his ego. This is magic. So he gathered the greatest magicians in Egypt before a crowd of thousands. Ropes and staffs filled the ground until people imagined snakes moving in every direction. Fear spread through the audience exactly as Pharaoh had planned. Then Musa alayhi salam threw down his staff. It didn't imitate their illusion. It swallowed it. Every staff, every trick. The first people to recognize the truth weren't the crowd, they were the magicians themselves. They had spent their entire lives mastering deception, so they instantly knew the difference between illusion and a miracle. Without hesitation, they fell into prostration and declared their faith in the Lord of alayhi salam and Harun. Pharaoh threatened to cut off their hands and feet and crucify them, but hearts that have witnessed the truth no longer fear kings. Even after that, Pharaoh refused to believe. Allah sent sign after sign upon Egypt. Floods, locusts, lice, frogs, and water turned to blood. Every time punishment came, Pharaoh begged Musa alayhi salam to ask Allah for relief. Every time relief arrived, he broke his promise and returned to arrogance. Finally, Allah commanded Musa alayhi salam to leave Egypt at night with the believers. By sunrise, they stood before the sea. Behind them thundered Pharaoh's army. Ahead of them stretched nothing but water. The people cried, "We are surely overtaken." But Musa alayhi salam saw what they could not. He simply said, "Indeed, my Lord is with me. He will guide me." Then Allah commanded him to strike the sea with his staff. The impossible happened. The sea split apart. Walls of water rose like towering mountains, and between them appeared a path of dry land where no path had existed before. Musa alayhi salam and the believers crossed safely while Pharaoh chased after them, blinded by the same arrogance that had ruled his life. The moment the last believer reached the other side, the sea returned to its place. Pharaoh was swallowed by the very water he believed he controlled. Only then, as death surrounded him, did he finally declare his faith. But faith delayed until the final breath is no faith at all. Allah preserved Pharaoh's body, not to honor him, but to make him a sign for every generation that followed. The king who once declared, "I am your Lord, the Most High," left this world with no throne, no army, and no power. An ordinary shepherd's staff, by Allah's permission, became the instrument that brought down the greatest empire of its time. Yet even that astonishing miracle would be surpassed by the prophet who came after him, a king whose army included mankind, jinn, birds, and even the wind itself. Part 6. Sulaiman alayhi salam, the king who ruled the wind. Some people dream of becoming kings. Sulaiman alayhi salam was born into a kingdom. He inherited prophethood and leadership from his father, Dawood alayhi salam. But Sulaiman alayhi salam didn't ask Allah for wealth or fame. He made a dua unlike any other prophet. "My Lord, forgive me and grant me a kingdom that will never belong to anyone after me." Allah accepted that dua. What followed was the greatest kingdom ever given to a human being. The wind itself obeyed his command. A journey that normally took an entire month could, by Allah's permission, be completed between morning and evening. The jinn worked under his authority, building magnificent palaces, diving into the seas, crafting great structures, and completing tasks beyond the ability of ordinary people. Even armies of men, jinn, and birds marched together in perfect order beneath his command. Yet one of the most beautiful moments in Sulaiman's alayhi salam story isn't about a mighty army. It's about a single bird. One day, while inspecting his forces, Sulaiman alayhi salam noticed the hoopoe was missing. Imagine that for a moment. A king responsible for an empire stretching across nations still noticed the absence of one tiny bird. Nothing in his kingdom was too small to matter. When the hoopoe finally returned, it didn't come with excuses. It came with extraordinary news. Far away was a powerful kingdom kingdom ruled by Queen Bilqis, a nation blessed with wealth, a magnificent throne, and great civilization. But despite all they possessed, they bowed to the sun instead of Allah. Sulaiman alayhi salam immediately sent her a letter beginning with the words every Muslim knows today. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the especially merciful. He invited her to worship Allah alone. Before the queen arrived, Sulaiman alayhi salam asked a remarkable question. Who can bring me her throne before she comes to me? One of the powerful jinn offered to bring it before Sulaiman alayhi salam could rise from his seat. But another man, blessed with knowledge from Allah, said, I will bring it before your glance returns to you. In the blink of an eye, the throne stood before Sulaiman alayhi salam. Yet listen to his response. He didn't celebrate his kingdom. He didn't boast about his power. He simply said, this is from the favor of my Lord to test me whether I will be grateful or ungrateful. That was the secret of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Every miracle brought him closer to Allah instead of making him proud. The same lesson appeared again during one of his journeys. As his enormous army marched across the land, a tiny ant warned the others to return to their homes before Sulaiman alayhi salam, and his soldiers unknowingly stepped on them. Allah allowed Sulaiman alayhi salam to understand the language of that tiny creature. He smiled, then immediately turned to Allah, thanking him for the countless blessings he had been given. Imagine that scene. A king who controlled the wind, commanded the jinn, led the greatest army on earth, yet paused his entire journey because of one small ant. That was the humility Allah loved. Even his death carried a lesson. Sulaiman alayhi salam passed away while leaning upon his staff, but his body remained standing. The jinn continued working, believing their king was still watching them. Days passed, perhaps even longer, until a tiny creature ate through the wooden staff. Only then did his body fall. Only then did everyone realize he had died. Allah tells us this happened so mankind would know one important truth. The jinn do not know the unseen. If they truly possessed knowledge of the unseen, they would have known the very moment their king passed away. The greatest kingdom in history didn't end with a war, or an assassination, or the collapse of a palace. It ended with a tiny creature quietly eating through a piece of wood. 6 prophets, 6 extraordinary miracles, a flood that reshaped the earth, a she-camel that tested an entire nation, a fire that forgot how to burn, mountains that praised Allah, a staff that brought down an empire, and a king whom even the wind obeyed. Every miracle pointed to the same truth. Nothing in this universe, water, mountains, fire, iron, kingdoms, jinn, or even the wind, moves except by the permission of Allah. The miracles ended, but that truth never will.